I'm Rob Licuria, Senior Editor at Gold Derby, here with Slow Horses director Saul Metzstein. Saul, you're nominated for drama directing for the season premiere of Strange Games of Slow Horses. So first of all, congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Talk us through the morning of or the afternoon of when you found out you were nominated. What was that like?
It's quite fun because we're actually filming season 5 of Slow Horses. So we were actually on set and the writer was sitting there with his phone as we were trying to finish the day. And sort of news came in of various nominations and things like that. So it was actually quite fun. It was very disruptive. It's good. Sort of like exec producers wanting to call me and things like that. I'm like, I've got one more shot to get. So it was there was some poetry involved in the fact that it was exactly at the same time as we were filming more of it, but it was,
Yeah,
an odd moment. Yeah, it's good.
that's exciting. Like you still got to get that work done, but the show was nominated across the board: drama series, Gary, Jack, Will in writing, you in directing.
Yeah.
Like it's just covered the field, and it just goes to show that Slow Horses, it just not only is it getting better and better each season, but audiences and critics and now the industry in Hollywood are really catching up and have really come on board. Why do you think the show appeals to people in the way that it does?
Oh, that's a hell of a difficult question for me. I enjoy it. What I enjoy about the show, I can't really speak for anyone else, but what I enjoy about the show is you think it's a sort of action spy thriller when in fact deep down it's a character piece. And the characters are very well drawn, and there's actually very nice relationships there. So you sort of have this double thing of action James Bondy kind of thing with something in the way which is a bit more, in some ways reminds me a bit of The Office almost. It's a relationship comedy about a bunch of people stuck together, and I think that's very appealing. And I think once you realize that's what it is, it takes a while to work it out. Once you realize that it's relationships and things like that, it's sort of easier to get into. And I think slowly the actors, of course, own their characters more and more each season. So slowly that's just becoming stronger as they get more and more confident about how their characters work together and things like that. That's
Yeah,
what I like about it. Yeah.
that's what I like about it too. It to me, it's like a workplace drama comedy. It just so happens to be set in the world of MI5 and
Yeah.
espionage. But that being said, what I really love about Strange Games, and everyone loves to talk about the way that the season opened. And let's cast our minds back because you probably shot that a while ago now.
Yes.
Um, it opens in Istanbul, and it's such a departure for the show's look and feel, and at least temporarily. And Slow Horses subverts the expectations for what we expect from an espionage thriller. But so, talk me through opening the season in Istanbul and departing from the show's look and feel, and temporarily flirting with that 007 aesthetic.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean it was a deeply self-conscious and conscious decision. It was to throw the audience to say, look, we're a proper spy film. Look at these glamorous people in this exotic location, and then so you just get that huge come down when it goes to the second scene, which is River and Catherine arguing about boxes that have taken over the office. I mean, it was very self-conscious. It's very nice to do nice missteps, as long as in the end you still give the audience something that they think is what the show is. It's also just, the fun way of starting something not with your characters, where something happens that is going to then affect the program, but you don't know what it is. And I think that's also, it's a very nice way of dragging an audience through without having to start with your characters. Because the important thing with the Slow Horses is they're not really in the center of things until they are. They're exiles and things like that. So that seemed to work very well. And then in terms of making it, I mean, Istanbul is one of the great cities of the world. I mean, we had an unbelievably good time making that, and it was, how do we do that sort of Bondish opening, using cars and boats and running and hitting and smashing
Yeah.
things up and having to dive out of the way. And I think and it also, there's also the thing of, by British standards, it's a very expensive show. And we thought, let's show off. Let's make something that you couldn't do on a BBC budget or something. Let's
That's
actually
right.
go the whole hog and show we can do this stuff. So I mean, but it was incredibly good fun. I mean, it's just everyone is, you know, you always want to have a boat chase across the Bosphorus and things like that. That's really what you
That's
want, isn't
right.
it?
I kept thinking, like, we go from Slough, like we go from the Bosphorus, that beautiful shot. I mean, I just thought you guys must have been having a ball, and then you're back in Slough House. Like, okay, well, this is the real show.
Mm.
Thank you for that, but let's move on to the real show.
But
No,
yeah,
that was cool. I enjoyed that.
yeah.
But speaking of breathtaking, actually, there's a lot that we're going to talk about in terms of what fans love about the show. But I find Slow Horses to be so breathtaking when MI5 agents are being chased or chasing people through the streets of London or in its underground. I can't imagine how challenging those scenes are to create. Are they as difficult as they look?
I don't know. It depends how difficult you think they look.
They look really
I
difficult.
mean, yeah. I mean that. Running around streets of London is not, it's not that difficult. It's just expensive and logistically unpleasant. It's not very hard. I happen to live very near the exterior of Slough House, so I have an advantage, which is I know every single corner here. So actually, to find these sort of fun alleyways and all that sort of thing, it was very easy for me. London is complicated. You got to block a lot of traffic. You got to block a lot of people. You got to pay a lot of money. You got to, you know, it's not super easy like that. I think the challenge for me, or I think the challenge built into a program like this is London, on one hand, is very grand, and the other hand is quite tight and claustrophobic. And
Mhm.
so it's not quite the same thing as a sort of car chase in Los Angeles, where you have these wide wide roads and sort of a lot of space and a lot of sky. We're dealing with a much more claustrophobic shooting environment, um, which presents its own challenges, but actually gives the thing a specific character, which I think that's the thing we're looking for. How do we make this London look both glossy and a bit grubby at the same time, and how do we have enough action fitting into how London works? But these are sort of, you know, when you start a program like this, you realize these are the inbuilt problems quite quickly, and so you do spend a lot of time trying to work out what's the way of resolving all that.
Absolutely, I totally agree with that. But let's talk about what probably the best thing about this show, to me at least, is the writing and the
Mm.
characters.
Mm.
Those razor sharp one-liners are so funny, and
Mm.
especially when the characters are sarcastic and self-deprecating. But the best thing is when like Jackson Lamb is berating or teasing, and the show lingers on the reactions a bit longer than any other show, and I guess that's intentional. How do
Mm.
you feel about really leaning into that side of the show? Because that's what we're all dying to see. We love it.
Yeah. I mean, I've sort of directed a lot of stuff which is probably counts as comedy. I mean, and to me, deep down, the DNA of Slow Horses is a comedy. It's a workplace comedy. The writer Will Smith comes out of writing things like Veep. You know, he's properly from comedy world. He's also incredibly funny. We also do a lot of work with the actors if they sort of come out with some other better way of making it funny. You know, it's very collaborative with the cast, particularly the main cast, about sort of how one-liners work. There's a sort of basic rule that only Lamb can be actually funny. Every River can try to be funny, but there's a sort of system of Lamb is actually funny, but we never play the joke. That's the thing. You play it as if it's a serious drama, and these guys saying these unpleasant things to each other. But a lot of the good lines are from the book. Will, the writer, is a master of insults and things like that. There's actually a few lines in it which are his, which are so unpleasant if you think about the mind that must have created it, that he has a embarrassed look on his face all the time when he's on set, when people realize that some of these lines have come out of his head, which he has to sort of deny. But yeah, he's a very nice man with a very sick brain.
And we love him for it.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't quite work without the actors, of course. Such a great ensemble. Jack
Mm.
Loudon nominated. I was so thrilled for him, and of course Gary Oldman, to me one of the greatest actors of all time.
Mm.
What's he like? What's his best quality as number one on the call sheet?
wow, he's just an unbelievably good actor. that's the first thing you work with, and you think, God, this guy's good at it. And then you go in the edit and you look at what he's done, and then you can really see things that you didn't even know were there. I mean, the man's a machine. I mean, it's really quite incredible. But it's very, very open to changes and adapting things and working on things in a way that I was very surprised about, I have to say. I was fully expecting to come in, this is like, Gary Oldman is entering the room and he tells you how it's going to be, and you just, I spoke at length to James Hawes, who directed the first season, and his main thing was, no, Gary likes to work with directors. He's full of respect for the role of the director, and he just works like a normal actor. Has just won this, unbelievably good at it. And then, of course, what happens on a set, or particularly on television, when you have characters coming back season after season, is the whole tone of it tends to be dictated by number one. So if number one is a proper actor who will always bring it, everyone else has to do the same. It's and Gary is just not that guy who's going to phone anything in ever. It just doesn't work like that. In a way, again, which sort of, I mean, it maybe shouldn't have surprised me, but I have met and worked with famous people who are just going to give you what they give you, and that's it. But that's not Gary. Occasionally, we've actually reshot some scenes when Gary's just not quite happy with it. And I have to say, on occasion, these things that I couldn't see quite what was wrong, but he could, and he's a level you just got to trust. That guy's a legend. He knows what he's doing. Let's work on it again, and we'll get something even better from him. But no, I think he's very respectful of the other actors, so the other actors also respond very well to that. But again, I think with that cast, I think they're just getting better and better each season.
Yeah,
I think they just know they're sort of fully confident in their characters now, in a way that is potentially one of the great advantages of television over a film, which is that they can slowly,
improve and hone,
Mm.
chisel it down. And like the audience is now coming along for that journey, because we have seen the progression of this show. I thought season 1 was outstanding. Imagine how I felt about season 3. God help us with season 4, and you're obviously working on season 5. My head
season 5, just the apocalypse.
Yes. You're right. Let's hope for the best.
None of it works. Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. What are the circumstances? I know each season obviously has one director, so it's like you're shooting a long film, and then you can't. Generally, those directors move on. What was the circumstances around you coming back for season 5?
I think they just forced me to come back. I think they thought this guy roughly knows what he's doing. I don't know. I don't know, to be honest. I think but they were quite insistent that I come back. And I certainly felt there was still stuff I hadn't done on the show, so it wasn't a difficult choice. And it is really enjoyable to make, I have to say. I mean, it's really enjoyable. And season 3 particularly was the easiest job I've ever done. I mean, it was just everything was there for us to do the filmmaking. There was no interference, no you can't do that, no questioning, it was just let's go for it. So it's not often television that comes along. So the idea of getting to do another 100 days of that with a really amazing crew. I mean, and most of that crew have been on it since season 1. I mean, they're really. It's like, I mean, again, they're machines. I mean, it's quite something. And a cast just getting more and more confident. And I think Will, the writer in particular, is incredibly easy to work with. If there's a problem, you say there's a problem, and we work out another way of doing it. I don't think we've ever had an argument for anything. I mean, that's what's interesting. Nothing.
Which is extremely rare.
Extremely rare.
We know.
Never happened to me before.
So no wonder you're coming back. I mean, if it was me, I just want to stay on the show till the end, if I could. Have you without giving anything away, obviously, have you noticed much of a shift in tone for season 5, or are we just going to have to wait and see?
Well, the way the program works to some extent is dictated by who's in the center of the story. So there are tonal shifts, and I think, again, Will and the execs were conscious of the idea that once you set up a good system for the show, different seasons can feel quite different. And I think that's also part of the idea of having a director per season. I think they wanted authored pieces, and of course I've ruined it by coming back. But that's a whole break in the system. But I think the seasons are quite different, and of course yet the same.
Yeah,
So in ours, to me, the central character in season 3 is actually Catherine Standish,
that's right.
because if anything, the story of Donovan and Alison is a mirror of her story with Charles Partner and all this sort of, and her disillusionment with the service. So there's a sort of, I mean, I don't know, I can't quite explain how it filters out, but really she's in the middle of it. Season 5, Ho is quite significant in season 5, and so it's quite different because
Wow.
Ho is quite a different character to Standish.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's quite different. Yeah, but again, I think the show can survive differences. That's the thing. I think some shows, once you do significant tonal moves, it falls apart. This
Yeah.
actually works better than most in my estimation.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's actually really analogous to the books. You pick
Mm,
up a book, you know what you're getting, but it's a story and it's
mm,
self-contained. And then that's what happens with these seasons. So I mean, who knows what we're going to get for season 4, obviously, in season 5, but we're in, and I'm ready. So I have one question. It's more about you as a director
mm,
generally.
mm,
Um, so when you're witnessing a really committed performance from an actor,
mm.
how do you tend to, over the years, how have you learnt to collaborate and provide guidance or guardrails without compromising that intensity and maybe something
Mm.
raw that's just coming out?
I mean, I think the only profound, and it's not very profound, thing I've learned about directing actors is each of them is different,
Mm,
and some of them want a different degree of involvement than others. I mean, I can tell you just an anecdote. I worked with Claire Foy once on something, and Claire Foy is an amazing actress. I mean, her skill is incredible. And I remember she did the first thing we shot. She did something, and then I thought I'd better go in and just give her a little bit of direction. I went in, give her a little bit of direction. She was marginally worse the next take, and I never really spoke to her very much after that because she knew what she was, she knew
yeah,
what she was doing.
so
So
late.
it was this thing about being responsive to who actually needs your input and who doesn't. The other thing in a program like Slow Horses, some of it's quite technical and action or just complicated for various reasons, and some of it is in a way classic television drama. And so there are scenes where you're just pointing the camera and
Mm,
letting them do their thing, and there's scenes where you actually need a lot of control over how they're doing performances, to do with how you're editing it and to do with what information you're giving the audience and all that sort of thing. So it's both understanding that in a scene what level of involvement you have and which particular actors you want to get more involved with than others. It's a sort of,
yeah,
so it's
it's
deeply
organic.
uneven. Yeah, very organic. And also some of the actors, I mean, the range of who wants to discuss things and who doesn't is enormous in that cast.
Really.
Enormous, enormous. Um, and again, I suppose the advantage is I've now shot with these people for 200 plus days. You get a fairly good idea of, who wants you there and who doesn't, and things like that. It's quite a,
Yeah, that's true.
but and they also, there's interesting dynamics between them. They bring out other things, in certain kinds of scenes. So, for example, one of my favorite scenes in season 3 is River and Louisa are in the car discussing their terrible lives, and it's quite an emotional scene. Do you remember that one? They're just
Yeah, I
waiting.
do. It's brilliant. Yeah.
And I thought it was a brilliant scene. And I have to say, my brilliance was giving them tons of space. I really didn't do it. They rehearsed it, they worked out, we discussed some things, some changes, but mostly held back and give them a lot of takes, give them a lot of time. I wouldn't really think I give them any specific notes,
Wow.
so, and
That,
again, you know, I still directed it. I just directed it by,
Yeah.
not over
I
directing
mean,
it.
I
You
get
know,
it. It's very
yeah.
awfully humble of you to say. And I remember Jack explaining to me that that was a scene that he really loved doing, and I think it's probably some of his best work too.
Mm,
But of course, you're all part of the puzzle, and when they're all firing, all the cylinders are firing, it creates
yeah.
a season like season 3. And on that note, Saul, thank you so much for your time today and your insight, and congrats again on your Emmy nomination.
Thank you very much.